despite President Muhammadu Buhari's directive to the Nigerian Armed Forces and other security formations to end insecurity and restore order and stability in the country by the end of December 2022, terrorists in the form of insurgency, banditry and killings by separatists has continued to claim lives. Though the killings have not stopped, experts say that the last 4 months have witnessed a decline. At least 671 civilians, police officers and military personnel have been killed since the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, disclosed the President's directive at a joint world conference in September 2022. However, we have seen pockets of attacks and killings continue since the deadline elapsed. 4 policemen were killed on January 2nd, 2023, when gunmen bombed the convoy of the former governor of Imo State, Ikedi Odakim, in the Iheme Mbano local government area of the state. And also, despite the military operations across the country, bandits have also launched attacks on communities in Zamfara, Katsina, and Kaduna State, killing and abducting residents. The most recent was the attack and abduction of passengers at the train station in Edo State. We have some experts with us in the studio to talk about this. Will Singh Inalegu, he is a retired AIG of police, and also Stephen Okori, a security consultant. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I recall that you were with us in the studio when this deadline was issued by the government to end insecurity in December 2022, and we were expectant that something new will happen, even though some people queried this deadline, saying that, I mean, what were the new measures that have been put in place that will guarantee the realization of this deadline? But we've not heard so much about the new strategies or the new measures that were put in then. But then we were just hopeful that, okay, perhaps maybe it's a security issue, and we may not need to hear the new strategies or the new measures put in place and the rest of them. But here we are. This is January 2023, and just 2 days ago, we had this attack in Edo State where we've seen abduction. It doesn't look as much as though lessons have been learned. Stephen, let me start with you.
Thank you again for inviting me. I want to start by saying that perhaps the president relied on a quote by the late General Colin Powell, former U.S. Secretary of State, where he talked about perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. You know, the president, I want to believe, believed that his government and the armed forces and the police are capable of carrying out the task of achieving success in trying to see that the insecurity issues are reduced drastically, but not eliminated, because a society without crime is impossible. Where you have situations where some citizens are law-abiding, you expect that some will be deviants. You know, they will not go according to the laws of the land. You know, so as the president of the country and commander-in-chief, you expect that he should charge the military and the police to see how to carry out the task of protecting lives and property. You know, but from analysts, security analysts and all that, they've come out to say that at least there's a kind of reduction in the crime rates and all that, but you don't expect a complete elimination of these incidents or attacks happening.
All right, Mr. let me come to you now. The deadline was given. It has elapsed. Is this now the Nigerian security architecture entirely waving a white flag that this is beyond them?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think it's beyond them, and they have shown that it's not beyond them. I think you recall that since the deadline was given, we've had a lot of activities by the security forces. I think a lot of bandit commanders were eliminated through aerial bombardment and other clearance operations. You know, when the CNC comes to talk like this, you see, you have a strategic meeting, and then you ask a question: what does it take to end, or to bring it to barest minimum? You really cannot end like my brother rightly said. And then they say, what do you need? Okay, we need that, this and that and that. And you know, from their calculation, they say, okay, if we do this, if we have this, we are likely to achieve this outcome. It is on that premise that the CNC will come and say, okay, within a period of 4 months, we will have a remarkable, significant reduction. Because these are social issues. It's not saying that you can mix one chemical with the other chemical and you get a result. It's very highly fluid. But what is gratifying though, we are not having mass kidnap like school children. I mean, it was almost becoming impossible for parents to send their boys to school. And so people were very apprehensive.
I mean, but we saw the Edo incident, which seems to have, you know, rubbished all the things that, you know, all the progresses that have been made in the past few months. I mean, carrying out an attack on in such a coordinated manner is a major concern here. Yeah. And part of the problem is we do not see resistance. It doesn't look like there's a battle between perhaps security personnel stationed in those areas, like the Edo scenario, for instance. We didn't hear about any gun duel between the security personnel and the abductors that came. So that's a major concern.
Let me explain to you. You see, once you have such operations, one of the first considerations is avoidance of collateral damage. That is why people complain. They say, we are just seeing a checkpoint ahead of us, and the kidnappers suddenly emerge from the bush, fire sporadic shots, and kidnap people. And the police didn't do anything. What the first consideration is, if I fire, am I likely to kill one of the victims? I could kill 10 of the abductors. So you've got to think out some of these steps. And then when you talk about the Igweben, I think the village is a carrier or somewhere like that. It's about 1.5 kilometers from Igweben. It is in a heavily forested place. Even the access road to their location is very difficult terrain. They are coming. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not giving an excuse, but when these people have been so reduced, they just want to make a statement. And they look at where is highly vulnerable. Of course, they are supposed to have early warning system. They are supposed to have all this. But
exactly.
But when you look at some of this scenario, we will not try to give in to these terrorists. What is their aim? Give an impression that security forces or government is not doing anything, whereas they are doing a lot. And so they look at the police.
You know, you talk about collateral damage, but it doesn't seem like it's so much of a collateral damage, or perhaps maybe lack of patriotism, or maybe negligence on the part of some of the security personnel. We've seen in the case of the Kuje prisons, for instance. Would you also say that it was for fear of collateral damage that we didn't see the resistance that was needed to defend the prison from the attack that took place? I mean, we had security personnel stationed there as well. So,
you see,
maybe I'll let Stephen first.
Yeah, but I would have loved to do some give some clarity, but it's okay.
You do that.
Okay. For me, I on the train issue in Edo, I think there was a detection failure, if you ask me, because ordinarily our security agencies ought to have detected that an attack was going to come. Intelligence gathering has a role to play there. If that was a failure, then how about denying the terrorists or the criminal elements from having access, the opportunity to get to the train station? It also behoves on the security agents to see that they deny them access. Don't give them the opportunity to strike at all, to even send that message, to the government that they are doing something, And also, if they had the opportunity to get into or get within the premises of the train station, the security agents, if they were on ground, at least they would have, in the event of trying to see how to stop them, they would have, in a way, delayed them from carrying out that attack. And I want to say that the response from the security agencies was also poor. This attack happened during the day. If there was a chopper or a helicopter in the Edo Police Command, and they, took swift actions, they would have at least seen where they were taking them to. We are experiencing dry season now. So no matter how thick the forest is, at least there'll be some visibility from air, to see that, okay, these adopters have been taken to XYZ direction or location, So for me, the response to was also poor, So there are lessons that we ought to have learned from the previous attacks. Now, like yesterday, I was watching television and I saw that there was presence of security agents, police, vigilantes, and the likes, stationed in the station, at the train station, Were they not supposed to be there before these attacks happen? You see, we take a lot of things for granted, and this, especially security. We ought to be proactive. We only react. That's the challenge I have. Now we are reacting. They have taken some people away. They are now stationed at the rail station. What are they doing there now? So we should not be seen that we're always reactive. Our response is also very slow. We need to. There are a lot of things that we need to. The gap that we have experienced, in trying to see that we protect lives and property, those gaps, in trying to see how to improve, we should see that we are closing the gaps.
Right. It seems like Mr. Naligo has something to say.
Yeah. It's unfortunate this happened. But I want to repeat that that place is heavily forested. Now, when you have a train station, you're supposed to have a police post. It may not be up to a police station. Therefore, you are going to have about 4 officers on duty. And you may not even have those 4 officers on duty. So, and when these people are coming, they come with a number that will be overwhelming. And my brother rightly put it, why should they come at all undetected? And that is the crux of the matter. Because in a democracy, emphasis is placed on community policing, making every member of the society a police officer, even though not wearing uniform. Therefore, they are able to get heads up from the community. We've seen some people gathering here. Because if they come to that station and the security forces engage them in a shootout, it's already a failed operation because they shouldn't even come in the first place. And so you try to nib in the bud. That place is heavily forested. And then you talk about the role of technology, which is a force multiplier. With the experience of Abuja-Kaduna train attack, all the stations should have minimum IP cameras. With 200,000, you can have 2 at the station. You buy one for around 90,000, and you put them, and you put a SIM card, and you are able to monitor whatever is going on there. But human intelligence given by the community, especially when you have an isolated place. That place, I made some inquiry. By the way, in the south and southeast, the harmattan doesn't dry the bushes there. It remains as thick as ever. And this place is not even at Igweben. It's about 1.5 kilometers from the general hospital. And so it is so located that the indigents there, the business activities there is very low. The only people selling granite and a banana. And some people, you walk to Agbo to catch a vehicle to Agbo. So when such places have been cited, it is important that you make at least the access road to the place to be motorable in a way that vehicles can go. Assuming that we had a response from Medo Command, well, that place is under the Railway Police Command. If you have a response, because of those thick bushes, those officers might have been ambushed and killed unnecessarily. My suggestion, therefore, would be that such locations, because of their vulnerability, there should be technology cameras in those places.
Okay, you know, at the end of it, in the end of the analysis, it points to one thing that we continue to hammer on, which is the issue of intelligence gathering. You know, how is it that we are still unable to have a grasp on the issue of intelligence as far as dealing with insecurity in this country is concerned? Why is it so difficult? What does it take really to have some of these things in place? We have technology now that can do the job almost 50%, you know, by at least providing timely information, you know, real-time information for security personnel to act upon. But why is this such a difficult task?
Well, you know that security is an expensive venture. When you have layers in the communities, you pay some level of stipend. Ordinarily, there should be a public-spirited thing that you see something go wrong and you bring it to attention of relevant authority. But this needs a lot of education to sink in. But I think should be that conscious effort to have intentional collaboration between the NPF and other security agencies, especially the DSS, so that some of these things, in addition to relying on the communities, that active collaboration and cooperation could bring a lot of things. So when you are talking about this intelligence, you must have a situation whereby you have that team that carries out analysis from lessons learned, and that is put into this. So I think it's about funding, it's about intentionality by the relevant agencies to share intelligence on a need-to-know basis, and then what the community brings. Do you respond? And that is why the issue of robust response comes in place. Because if I give you information and the way you handle it, it's going to inform whether I go ahead to continue to collaborate with you. So there need to be adequate resources that will enhance police response in terms of fuel, in terms of vehicle, in terms of welfare for personnel, and you see them do this thing and people get confidence. It's about getting the confidence of the public.
All right, so this brings to question what I actually wanted to raise. Now, this failure of having the required intelligence, or maybe having the cooperation of communities when it comes to getting this required intelligence, it's just like you pointed out now, it's an issue of confidence in the security agencies. Where did the failure happen?
Yeah,
Is it a failure of the state in providing these facilities or the resources for the security agencies, or from the agencies themselves not being able to create that confidence between them and the community?
I think they are all encompassing, if you ask me. Crime, if you ask me, are local, you know. You see, there's this trust deficit between the populace, you know, and the Nigerian police, if you ask me. You know, so that trust deficit now, I think a whole lot needs to be done, you know, to build that trust back. Because these criminal elements, they try to see how to perfect their activity, you know, their heinous activity from our local communities before they come to see how to execute them. You know, what happened in the Edo incident now, they arranged it somewhere, you know, and one or two members of the communities around must have seen them pass through and all that. But, you know, and we need an awareness, you know, they need to be educated too as well, you know. talk to them in their own local dialect for them to understand that if you see something that is suspicious, you make it available, pass the information to the nearest police station.
So the onus is on who now to actually do that?
Now, the onus is on both we, security is everybody's responsibility, so we, the citizens or the populace, and the police, there's need for collaboration between the populace and the police to see how to execute that, As they see, they must have to let the police know, and for the police to take action, You see, there's this complacent attitude, in our law enforcement. Sometimes informations are passed to them and they take it for granted. They just, talk about, just joke over it and all that. So every information that comes, I think it's very important.
When you talk about our security personnel, they themselves are targets. So by the data that was just analyzed and released recently, we understand that 671 recorded deaths in the last 4 months.
Yes.
And out of that number, 47 were police officers,
yes,
and 10 were soldiers. So we have 57 police officers now. And that is against the backdrop of the fact that we are talking about the insufficient number of our security personnel and all of that. So you have security personnel that they themselves are targets.
Yes, certainly.
In a couple of cases, we've seen how some of them attached to certain VIPs were attacked and then were killed, in the process and all of that. How do we make sure that our security personnel are alert and are well protected to carry out their duties?
You see,
because in the cases that we heard about, before you answer, the people that they are attached to,
yes, don't lose their lives,
are safe.
Yes.
But the security personnel,
they lose their, even in the case of that popular pastor in Auchi that was attacked, he lost some police officers and he managed to escape. And the Senator Ifanyu Batu as well lost police officers as well. You see, I think the police really need to take it hard on these politicians and all these popular pastors and all that have the wherewithal to to ask for security, As you protect yourself, these security personnel, they also have lives as well. If you are buying bulletproof car for yourself, you should ensure that you make provision for them as well. You don't expect them to be in an ordinary vehicle when you have gone to either have 1 or 2 issues with your political opponents or whatever, and you now put their lives at risk in trying to protect you. So I think it's something that should be between the Nigerian police, the hierarchy of the Nigerian police, and people that are aware, that have the wealth to come and ask for such protection. As you buy to protect yourself, you should also make some reasonable provision to see that these security agents are also protected.
Wilson, perhaps you can talk to us more about this.
Yeah.
What does it entail, really, dispatching personnel to VIPs? And what measures, are there policies, are there clear directives on how to guarantee that these personnel are also protected and they are well taken care of? Is it, whose mandate is it, or whose job is it to make sure that they are perhaps maybe well kitted and then they work in an environment that with what they require?
It is very saddening that we lost a lot of officers in the last 4 months, and it's happening all the time now. But I think, in addition to the very important points that my brother raised, is the issue of training and retraining. How do you survive an ambush? Because even if we have armored vehicles, what if the killers decide to barricade the passage and they make sure the vehicle stops? So it's very important that they are provided with body armor, ballistic helmet.
Whose job is to do that?
Is the NPF. It's the police. It's the police. It's part of their accoutrement. It's part of their dresses, and we have. The number, of course, may not go wrong. But, you know, if you have a pickup and it is soft body, and the first round hits the driver, it could go and crash, and the personnel, when you don't even know where you are, it's easy for you to get killed. So there could be some minimal, especially the open areas, the seat area. You could have some glasses. I think so. That the first rounds shouldn't hit the officer.
Is there any responsibility on the personnel that the police are guarding to provide bulletproof and perhaps certain kits that they will require? And if such a person is intending to do so or willing to do so, what does it entail? What is there any process that will require or anything like that?
If you intend to support, like we have people buy vehicles for the NPF and other security agencies, there is a procedure to follow. But if you are bringing in bulletproof vehicles or bulletproof vests or other things, you need an end user certificate through the Office of the National Security Advisor, who will grant that end user certificate. And I think members of the public who are desirous of this service could route such. They cannot on their own purchase those things, but they can write to the IG and say, we intend to give support. Because in the police armory and police stores, you have bulletproof vests, you have ballistic helmets, and for armored personnel carriers that we have, they are not used for the escort of private individuals.
Would you consider that the bureaucracy around this is could be a problem sometimes?
No, I don't think it's a problem, because we've had state governments apply to the police.
I'm talking about individuals, not
the individuals
governments.
can also apply. But when you apply to the police for the special protection unit, officers will be deployed to you. When they come, you should ask, are you with your body armor? Do you have a ballistic helmet? And if they say, oh God, this is all we have, and you say you want to buy, of course you cannot buy. You will still route your request to the IG. But for a governor, it can be part of what it can give to support the police. But I'm not aware that individuals can purchase. But it is important, an incumbent on the police management and the respective commissioners of police, that in deploying personnel, these things should be considered. And where you don't have, you say, well, we are not giving you our officers, we need this. And then those people can gather. After all, when you have a problem, the police and the public are supposed to come together to find a common approach to address those issues. And this could be regarded as one of those issues. But of also critical importance is the issue of training and retraining. Because you can have all the equipment. When you're on the road, what should you watch out for? If you're in the Southeast, once you're in uniform, you are automatically a target, because they are challenging the authority of the federal government. And they don't think the federal government should have presence in their area. That's the impression that I get from what goes on. Therefore, if you're a police officer in the Southeast, particularly, you know that you are marked for attack. But you should also be given the right training, that even if you have 10 people come to attack 2, 3 of you, how do you take them out? And you have to develop sources within the communities. And then when you have those sources within the communities, you are able to nib in the bud some of this attack. So in addition to whatever equipment that you are going to be provided with, you should also have that basic training. And then the MPF, as part of the community policing principle, should consider giving training to communities. Where you have communities, you should talk to them, gather them, tell them about kidnap, tell them about attack on officers and how they can report. And then those can cascade that information and knowledge to the larger society. So there is a need for conducting training for the community members about current events on security. Then they can become more useful.
All right, I'd like to circle back before we move on. I'd like to circle back to this issue of deploying policemen to VIPs for their personal protection. A lot of people have a problem with that because we're always complaining that we don't have enough manpower, we don't have enough police officers, but still you have certain individuals having a certain number of policemen with them for their own protection, whereby they could actually be deployed to other places to secure critical government infrastructure and, of course, ordinary citizens. In other places, in other countries, you have private security outfits that are licensed to carry arms, which provide these services for private individuals that actually want to have that level of security. Do you think having that kind of thing in this country will mitigate issues like this, whereby we have to remove our own policemen and for these VIPs to be protected?
Yeah. It will go a long way to see how to aid or help in what we're saying. I'm happy that my former AIG is here. At the moment, we have less than 400,000 police officers or personnel, and we have over 200 million Nigerians, I was surprised some time ago when I saw a private individual, a wealthy individual, and the number of policemen that I saw in his convoy, I begins to imagine that why is this happening? In his house, you see numbers of police in his convoy. He lives somewhere in the Metama axis there, And when you look at these numbers following these wealthy individuals and all that, and you begin to imagine how many do we have left to police us or to protect us? The number is very, very inadequate. So if, of course, you know that our law, frowns at private security having guns or ammunitions and all that, But if we think or go beyond this, we are quick to go and see how to borrow. If it's working somewhere in other climes and you think that we can apply it here and it will work for us, there's nothing wrong in trying to see how to adopt such a policy. Okay. It will go a long way in helping us. And if it's very impossible to do that, then there's need for the police and other law enforcement to see how to recruit more. We need them to be recruited to increase the number.
All right. Now, before we wind down the discussion, yesterday we saw INEC raise certain alarms about the conduct of the 2023 general elections. I would like for you to give your perspectives on that just before we end the discussion. They are saying that there's a likelihood of either cancelling or postponing the general elections due to security concerns here and there. What's your reaction to that?
First of all, INEC impresses me a lot because of their communication. They always keep Nigerians informed of developments, and I think that's very important. There is no election that you don't have security issues around it. But what is so important is how do you address those issues of security? Because by now, the threat analysis for the 2023 elections have been done, and they continue to evolve. Now, what are the likely issues that you're going to have in this election? Attacks on government facilities on INEC. How do you stop those attacks? Attacks on INEC staff, attack on voters, and all that. But I think what is important to me is that I think the election is going to be conducted. But the fear that I nurse is the emotion that is going into the election by the different supporters of the different political parties. I see that a lot of people are being too emotional instead of, and so for such people to reason is going to be very difficult. And so there is a need for more education, that go there and cast your vote. INEC should ensure that there is transparency. They should be properly, they should prepare themselves properly.
All right.
And another thing I want to warn, the outcome of the election. The January 6th issue in the United States. Brazil has borrowed a leaf from it.
Yeah.
And I think our security agencies must readjust their thinking cap and begin to look at it. That is why I talked about the emotion that people are not being rational. People stay in their houses and think because of their vote, their candidate has won. And if their candidate doesn't win because of their vote, the election is
rigged.
All
right. Well, quickly, Stephen, in 1 minute.
Yes, okay. I want to come from the angle of where something needs to be done about protecting voters, observers, and all these other journalists and all this other group that comes to various polling units. There's a law that says that policemen are not supposed to carry arms to the polling units, But I think that with the current state that we are in Nigeria, there's something that they need to do. There needs to be armed security presence, so that voters will have this confidence that when they come out to vote, they are not either killed or harmed, All
right. Well, thank you so much for your perspective. That's the much we can take. Wilson Inalegu, a retired AIG of Police, and Stephen Okore, security consultant. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives with us.
Thank you for having me.